Hi, my name's Steve Holden and I'm a Python user. Python's becoming a very popular language, so I thought it might be interesting to show people how to install a portable Python environment very easily. You can create these things and delete them just as often as you want. It's based on use of the command line, but as long as you can use the command line, you really don't need to worry about it. So the technique we're going to use is to use a tool called Anaconda, which was built by Continuum Analytics, a professional numerics and Python company. There's their website. I'm going to go to their downloads page, continuum.io/downloads, and you can see that they've detected the fact that I'm using a 64-bit Mac, and they're offering me both a graphical installer and a command line installer for Python 2.7. Most of my work's done with Python 3.4, and if I click on that link, then those 3.4 installers are just as available. But let's work with Python 2.7 since a lot of people still do, and it really doesn't matter which. So I click on the download link, and my browser reminds me that it's dangerous to download executable files, but I tell it I want to keep it anyway. And then we wait for a couple of minutes to elapse while the download takes place. So 2 minutes having magically elapsed, you can see that we now have the Anaconda installer completed. I happen to know where it lives, so I'm going to go straight to my command window, and all I have to do is run that file. So I've got to run it particularly with the bash shell. Even if you're not a bash user, you should still use the bash shell. And so I'm going to say that I want to run the Anaconda installer, which is in the downloads subdirectory of my home directory. And I can actually just type ANA and then use tab to complete the name, hit enter. And the first thing it does is say, we'd like you to review our license agreement. You hit enter again and you can space all the way through the license agreement and suggest that you do agree to the license terms. By default, it will create the environment in your home directory, in a directory called Anaconda, but I'm going to create this one in a directory called ANA3 in my temporary directory. So it's setting a prefix, and now there's a certain amount of time going to elapse while the install takes place. Obviously, with an archive of over 200 megabytes, there's a certain amount of work to be done, but you do get reasonable indication of the progress as the tool goes through the various different packages that it's installing, and you can see that you do get a relatively complete installation of Python, including the IPython notebook and various other libraries as well. So Anaconda have done a pretty good job of making sure that what's delivered is a complete and usable Python. There goes matplotlib. Look, that was a fairly lengthy install. I imagine we're going to see NumPy and SciPy as well, since I happen to know that analytics have a great interest in that area. Oh, there goes pandas. Look, that's a data science library. We've got all the good stuff in this distribution. So Qt took quite a bit of installing. Scikit-image and scikit-learn have gone in there. We've got SciPy in there. So these installs go pretty quickly because the files are already pre-compiled for a specific architecture, and they just have to be unpacked into the right place. So it now warns us that it's creating a default environment. And it says, do you actually want to alter your bash profile? Now, I can do that if I want, but since I wish this to be a temporary environment, I'm not going to. But it does tell us, however, that there's a command we can use to alter our existing Python environment to use that particular command. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that command, but before I use it, I'm going to ask my shell which Python it thinks I'm using, and you can see that by default I'm going to get the Python from my user local bin directory, which is where I've installed my own particular version of Python. If I run that, you can see that my default Python is 279, and it was specifically compiled from a certain build. So now if I paste in the command that was suggested by the installer, you can see that now if I ask it which Python I'm going to install, going to run by the Python command, it says I'm going to be running the Python that was just installed in that particular Python environment. And so if I actually run it, you'll see that I still get a recent Python. In fact, this is 278 rather than 279, but the difference is so small as to be negligible unless one of the particular fixes in that minor release is something you need. They do put a two-line little message in there to remind you that Continuum Analytics have provided you with this, but considering that we now have packages like SciPy and NumPy at our disposal with a limited install, then I think that's really something that we can't complain too much about. So in other words, all you need to do to activate that Python environment is to execute that command in your current environment, and lo and behold, you've got a brand new Python that you can play with. And not only that, you've got Python 2.7 or Python 3.4. So the thing I'd suggest is if you want a lot of independent Python environments that are fairly complete, and you don't want to bother with the complexity of virtual environments, then just download the Anaconda installer, keep it somewhere handy, and run it whenever you want to create a new environment. So that's the end of this video. I do hope that you've found it helpful, and I hope that lots of people are going to be using Anaconda Python as a result. Happy Pythoning, guys!